It's another episode of Paid in Full, and here I feel like a superstar because I'm sure this is the first time you're seeing this mic. Like I just feel like performing. This is Paid in Full. I'm saying that because I'm holding a mic, and it's the first time you're seeing this mic on this episode. Amazing session. I'm super excited because of who I have with me. You know when they say when. How will I put it now? How will I put it? So I think in English, so I'm trying to interpret it from Yoruba. Here is the catch. They say, as a child, if you're standing on top of a tree or a story building, what an elder will see sitting down, you're not even going to see it if you're standing at the top of Burj Khalifa. And I think that's really true because of the decades of experience, decades of sweat, blood, tears, things that have gone behind the scene to build the person that they have become. And that's the concept of Paid in Full. And you sure know that we bring you top seasoned leaders across the hemisphere of different industries. And they come here to just tell you the scars that they've met, or perhaps the cross they've carried was when the season of Christmas. So the cross they've carried on their way to Calvary, or to dying for your sins. And you sure know what I'm talking about. This is another episode of Paid in Full. And this time around, we have an amazing gentleman. I'm going to say it again. Man who's put in decades of experience, decades of work to birth who he is today. Growing up, I was very used to the radio. It was my way out of escape from the context of an average African family. So when they tell you wash plates, sweep, do this, do that, you're arguing with your younger ones, the entire house is a mess because you guys are trying to figure out who's going to do the chores. I just go to one corner and pick up my radio and I find solace in that. And there are people who sometimes, when I was small, I used to think that the person is inside the radio. You know how you're thinking, or you're watching TV, you feel that there's somebody behind the TV and the person is performing. How this TV box is so small. What is happening? What's the concept of radio? What's the concept of television? Until I grew older and I discovered that, hey, it's an entire industry. There's a lot to read that meets the eyes. 20 years of experience. You hear his voice every now and then. He talks about Nigeria. As a matter of fact, backstage, we're talking about the issue of Nigeria. I was asking him that, how does he cope when every now and then you're talking about Nigeria, you're trying to demystify the issues, you're trying to solve a problem, you're trying to get correspondents to talk about the ills you know of, you're still trying to watch what you say so the regulators don't come for you. At the same time, you're trying to figure out how to stay sane when having those conversations. And sometimes you feel like just giving the correspondent a slap that, I know you're lying. And you're literally looking me in the face and you're lying to me. Anyways, all those mixed feelings is a function of experience. You can't just wake up today and say you want to talk on radio. Trust me, you're going to spend 10 years behind bars because there's a science to it. There's a science to approaching conversations, and we need to understand all of that. Ladies and gentlemen, I have no other person but Kayode Iposu. You're very much welcome to Paid in Full.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Oh my goodness. Frank. What is decades, more than 2 decades, talking about our darling nation, talking about issues, talking to leaders across the world. What does it feel like?
Well, 2 decades, it will be 2.5 decades next year though, 25 years in 2025 that I've been in this industry. But even before I talk about that, you said this thing about this adage we have, which goes that what an adult, what a child sees standing, what an adult sees sitting, the child might not see standing. I beg to differ. What an adult sees even standing, the child will just go online and check it, and you sort all that out. But
you know the scene in that context is actually experience. So there are some things you have had knowledge of, but if you've not experienced it, it's a different ball game. It's just like the concept. It's just like the concept of trying to read your way to swim or read your way to drive or watch a YouTube video to drive. You have to experience driving for you to be able to say, hey, I know how to drive or swimming. I remember those days, it looks easy swimming until I went for practice. The lady,
but I mean, even talking about the media, it's easy to say you should have asked this question, you should have spoken this way. This guy doesn't sound well until you get in front of the mic and you're thrown there and you have to think on your feet, you have to ask questions and interact. But talking 24 years now of being in the industry, it's been tough because I started in a rather unusual way. I started work in Togo. In Lomé, the capital of Togo.
Wow.
And, then...
The city of Ewagoin.
Yeah, city of Ewagoin. You get that right. So, I remember working then with Télévision Deuxième, and we started... Télévision Deuxième. TV2.
TV2 is okay.
Yeah. And working up to them to say, you know what? Before I started, I'd walked up to TVT, the Télévision Togolaise, that's the national TV, and said, listen, I want to
French?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, wow.
I do.
You're an asset.
Thanks.
Continue.
They said, I want to work here, and Togo is a police state. It's a place where people are very careful, and even it's like, it's a militarized state, so the TV station was still like the NT of back in the day where you had military everywhere. You can't just go in. But the Nigerian in me, I went there, I said, I want to work here. And I started meeting the head of programs. Then we were talking back and forth, sent some documents and all that. Then TVT started, which was TVD rather, which was the first secular private station.
Okay.
There was another private station that was religious, Télévision Zion, which was somewhere in Beirut. Was it Beirut? Somewhere there, in Aneho, somewhere in Togo. So I walked up to TVD to say, you know what, I want to do this. Then it was more of music. It wasn't about current affairs. I want to host a show and we started, it was a blend of English and French show. And we started from there, did that for a while, moved to Togo. But the thing with that was I started as an OAP in front of the camera. And the pressure was too much for me. I just couldn't cope with the pressure. I like to live my private life, buy my wagon by the roadside, buy my boli and all that. And I just felt I can't cope with this pressure. So when I moved to Ghana, I got an offer. I just avoided front of the screen, went behind, did a lot more with the print, did a lot more with the radio, worked in Ghana, but still doing a bit of Ghana, Togo, did private productions. So I went more into productions, did productions, and after a while, after like 10 years, I became the program director of a station, set up a station for some Ghanaians there, worked with TV, became program director of TV as well, home-based television, and Pravda Radio was the first one. And, it's just been in there. So I've been in the media all this while. I've done radio, done TV, and I've also done print. Worked as a head of managing editor of a print magazine. What's it called? A corporate Guardian magazine, a business magazine in Ghana at that time. So, but while I did all that, I've worked also. I was still working, doing some stuff in Togo, consulting here and there, meeting up friends here and there, and so I worked across West Africa for approximately 20 years.
Oh, wow.
I represented some Nigerian magazines there. But what I'll say was my strength was the courage and the fact that I had foresight. I could see opportunities. I remember writing Dayo Lomu back then in the UK to say, I see this magazine, M&M magazine. I believe you can sell in Ghana and I want to work with you. And he sent me an email. And what he said in the email, I asked for my number, which I gave to him, and he called me up and said what intrigued him about my email wasn't just the email, was the fact that I said I want to represent him in Ghana, and I did an article that I sent to him, and that caught his attention. So I wrote for M&M magazine at some point, wrote for Hip Hop World magazine at some point, that's Nigeria Hip Hop World magazine. I was into artist management at some point. I did a lot of things within that space. I can say that VIP, I was the first that brought the music to Ghana, to Nigeria.
Oh.
Yeah, before Kenny's Music came then to Ghana and they had a contract.
Yeah.
I took some Nigerian acts. That was the first that played the band's music in Ghana. I played it then with on Bolare's show at Joy FM. Bolare is now...
I think I know Joy. Joy FM is one of the most popular.
Yeah, one of the most popular, yeah. I played it then on Joy FM and on Peace FM. So I did a bit of all that, but I just shied away from being an OAP because I felt the pressure was too much. It was exposing you to, all this attention, which I didn't like. But the courage is what I'll say brought me this far.
The courage. What are the challenges? Let's talk about the challenges. What are a few challenges that you've met along the line, and which of them stood out for you that it was like, oh my goodness, if I cross this, then I don't think then it's the holy grail of being a warrior.
Which one stood out for me? A couple. The idea of trying to get a job, and of course, it's better now. But back then, this infamy that Nigeria suffers, like I said, my case is peculiar. It's not just restricted to Nigeria.
Yeah.
The infamy we suffer where you're Nigerian and, we might not be able to employ you, or you're lagging behind because of something. You need to really prove yourself, your worth. And I think that worked in my favor. Because I needed to fight. I needed to really go out there and prove that I can do it. And so I'm trying to remember a very particular challenge. Trying to prove yourself, I'll say generally, was a tough one. Just trying to let people know that you can do this. But of course, working at that time and having little amount of money.
Oh, wow.
I mean, that's a general challenge for a lot of people. Yeah. Starting life and living on the tiniest amount. Pence is still a lot. Kobo is huge. There's anything less than a kobo. That's how tough it became, because at times you needed to do things and just to prove that you could do it. You needed to send, especially working as an independent producer at some point, you needed to send proposals out. I remember at some point, while in Ghana, trying to get proposals out to get sponsorship for some of my programs, I worked for well over about 3 hours. And what I was doing then was I'd written proposals, I'd done my scan, identified companies I could go to. So for those who know Ghana quite well, I did the printing then at Busy Internet around Kwame Nkrumah Circle. Those who know Ghana will know what I'm talking about. And I started going from office to office, carried my bag with documents in it, office to office, dropping proposals here and there, trying to meet the boss, going here, doing presentations. And I just realized I was getting tired. I didn't even know I'd done that much. So I walked from around Kwame Nkrumah down to close to the Laboni Junction in Accra. And by the time I got there, you had to ride, go here, talk a bit, try to convince someone to let me see the boss. And the other challenge then was, and that toughened me really, because then you just had to wear what you had. And we didn't really understand the art of presentation. That there's an appearance you must have. There is a way you must look that'll make people take you seriously. And, over time, in the midst of doing this, we got to learn on the, and because you get to a place and you're sweating, and you want to see the marketing manager, automatically the person looks at you and says, this guy cannot know the marketing manager. And it doesn't have the features of someone that moves with the marketing manager. Yeah.
And
you're talking, so can I? And you're sweaty and all that. But with time, right, we realize that, people judge us by the way we look. So if you realize you walked, you had a handkerchief, you get some water, clean your shoes well before you approach the company, or you get there, you realize you still, there's this sweat you emit that even when you wipe yourself 20 times, it keeps coming out.
Yeah,
your pulse adjusts. Yeah. So you get there to the gate and like, when they allow you passage, first you do, can I use your washroom? You go there, you take a deep breath, clean your face properly, calm down. Then you step out to the office. And those were some of the challenges. It wasn't rosy like, you had doors opening for you, but, we got by.
But you talked about money and money in the sense how the industry has fared so far. and it looks like I'd love to put it this way. If you look at what has happened across different sectors, if we take a look at the oil and gas sector, we take a look at even finance, you see the transition. There's always a kairos moment where things shift. And what causes that what brings about that kairos moment is some level of some kind of innovation. And it just changes the game entirely. If we take a look, let's even use finance. You see, at a point in time, we're using cowries. Then it transitioned to trade by barter, and then we started using paper money. And you see other strands. Now we're talking about cashless, and now we're even talking about decentralization, the blockchain, and all whatnot. The same thing has happened to media and broadcasting. At a point in time, it used to be what is it called? Typewriting. You see typewriters. We had clerks who were in the business of typing things to just disseminate information to the public. Then it transitioned into print, newspaper, where you have to wait till the following morning to be able to get access to what happened in your environs without you even knowing. I don't know if you get. So we've seen how the market has moved from that. It's no longer newspaper. It's now on demand. And I love to say social media has brought about decentralization of media. So everyone, citizen journalism is more or less like, I know what happens before news at 10. I don't have to wait for news at 10 or news on the hour to know what is happening. I can get real-time situation, what is happening in my environment. Because anybody can just pick up their phone, put on a live and record what is happening, and you get access to this information. And it has really decentralized the idea of the holy grail of media. And what's your take about that transition, especially the markets? Do you think things are changing? Do you think it's no longer business as usual? Is it still as lucrative? Is the industry still as lucrative as it is? What should people be looking out for? What's the next frontier?
Well, talking about the next frontier, that would be another level. But first of all, analyzing and looking at the media industry itself, the sector, it's, of course, the only thing constant in life is change. And with time, we've seen evolution of the media. From the time when we started 24 years ago, you don't go on air and say what you want to say, what you feel like saying. You script and you go according to the scripts. If you go against the script, you could be penalized. So you have the script, you have the teleprompter, and you were talking. So everything you were saying looked so spontaneous, but it's scripted. And you needed to go. Of course, from time to time, you could ad-lib a bit, but that depends on the flexibility of your producer. So I remember working at Television Deuxième back then, the Hotel de Deux Février. That's where we were, and you were presenting. You feel like, so I was like, man, this thing isn't easy. You need to script everything and, deliver it, and you go through everything you've said. But now all that has changed. There's a lot more flexibility in the media, and that, while that is a good thing, unfortunately, it's in a way affecting us a lot too in this part of the world, because that flexibility has brought about a lot of, I wouldn't say mediocrity, but near mediocrity. And because a lot of people are not as prepared. In other parts of the world, while there are many changes, look, for example, at Richard Quest. He's one of the people that introduce flexibility to presenting. When you're doing business news back in the day, you're very upright, straight, you don't even move your neck too much. But Richard Quest came in and he had so much gestures on TV, turning left and right and expressive, and and that changed, that influenced the entire
business media.
The media industry. And so we've seen evolution. Now you go on radio, you don't really need to follow a script. You only do your research, you have your bullet points, and you deliver. Of course, if you still go to some of the traditional radio stations, they still do so much trying to follow that script. But that is where we are right now. A lot of technology that has been introduced to the media has actually facilitated the work, where it depends on what you're able to do. AI is making it so now I understand what some people who were the people who look up to back then, what they felt when we speak and like, oh, you guys are not even doing much. Everything is just easy for you. Now I look at AI and I realize some of my junior colleagues, they don't even break a sweat when writing. And I'm like, guy, you haven't done journalism. You need to think. I'm like, you need to write. You need to research. You need to write. Be crafty. Be creative. Right, let everything come from your head. But now you just put in 1 or 2 keywords and AI generates it for you. You read the news and no errors. You don't need to do what do you call that? Use a thesaurus or spell checking or whatever. You just deliver. It has made it easy. Some of us might still be struggling to say, no, I won't go through this route. I want to do it my way. This is who I am. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
You will switch. But the future is meant to be great. But that would depend on us and how we manage it. Because, for example, last year's election, there were reports that, was it about 60% or so of the news that was shared on social media regarding the election were fake. So, if that's why when we talk about social media being the new frontier, it is good. It is true. That's why a lot of us are on it, even abroad. All the Bloomberg, they all are on social media.
That's right.
But what are you doing to make sure that you regulate it? What are you doing to ensure that the average Nigerian knows which news is true, which isn't? One thing that journalism does, it helps. People think journalism is simple, but it helps you think. A true journalist rather, is somebody that is very cerebral, because you look at different angles of a program. I was watching a movie recently, The Siege, and there was a journalist there who got a scoop from an insider, did the story, and after they published the story, they were the only ones, when the real news now broke, it tallied with the story she wrote, and everybody was celebrating. But later on in the evening, there was another news that came up from the presidency or from the assembly, which contradicted what they had written. And they broke down. They were sad that we misled the people. That is journalism. Any journalist that does a story, or anybody that claims to be a journalist, whether trained or untrained, does a story, the story doesn't turn out to be true, and you're like, people should have known. You're not a journalist. You should feel bad that, oh no, what I did was wrong. That is journalism. So to what extent do we regulate? And when I say regulate, I'm not talking about government alone, but the structures that we put in place to ensure that we filter the chaff from the actual products that we need. And that is one thing that is lacking, because right now you go on social media and you see so much falsehood, so much to the extent that, an example of what is trending right now, I've been asking this question. Please tell me, what has Mr. or Chief Afe Babalola done? He reported a case. The police, in their typical manner, exaggerated the case, and a lot of social media journalists are blaming him. Somebody has to be blamed, yes, but why not blame the police? Because if it were not Dele Farotimi, an average Nigerian is treated that way on a daily basis.
That's right.
So why is this case different? Why are you suddenly treating it like it's a new thing? Why don't we all come together and say, the police, you abuse the system, this should not happen, and we are taking you on? That is journalism. So those are just the dangers I see. But in terms of, it's going to open up the space for many people to come in, and so much information will be going out. That's the future of journalism in Nigeria.
I was having a conversation with someone. I was telling the person that what an entire media house is earning right now, on the average, there's a kid somewhere who is just one person.
Oh, yes.
Who is giving them a run for their money.
Yes.
As regards financials. And that's an entire corporation and one person. So if you juxtapose this, put that side by side, the effort, energy, the input doesn't commensurate with the outputs. And it's just a matter of time. Morale will dwindle.
Definitely.
People will go for what commercialize their effort, or even if it's what compensates the effort they're putting in, the work they're putting in to be able to be who they are. And it's really about the financials of the sector. What's your take about it? What do you have to say? You've experienced different cycles, and finance is a big deal, and it's the oil that literally lubricates the entire wheel of any sector. And if it's not there, there's going to be a problem. I'll give you classic case studies. Look at what is happening to DSTV right now. They literally, it's a tough time for them. Netflix is giving them a run for their money. Netflix is pursuing a couple of licenses for sports. Look at the fight the other day. They streamed it live. Millions and millions of people watched that match. What the fight live, and it's like the game has changed. The other day, the NFL, they gave a license to a particular streaming platform to be able to show just one day their portal. It finished their portal. So we're seeing a shift. Innovation is bringing about. It's changing the game for traditional media, and if traditional media outlets do not pivot, it's only just a matter of time. The ship would sink. What do you have to say as somebody who is inside the ship? Do you think it's a time? What's your advice to people, your fellow guys who are inside the ship? Is it a time for them to build another ship, or what?
Is it a case of a time to build another ship? But it's like you said, that is the way the media has been. Remember, there was a time we're carrying chunk of papers that we call newspapers.
Yeah, true.
Time came, almost everybody's gone online. There are even some newspapers today that are online newspapers, because they don't publish anymore. I think case in sight, Daily Trust, if I'm right, they stopped publishing and now they're strictly online. And there are many cases like that. And even beyond the media, there are many boutiques that closed down and you rather just went online, had a store where you order online, they deliver to you.
That's right.
So I think the media as a whole is used to evolution. The media is used to that. The media is used to evolution to the extent that when YouTube came up, that was around 20 years ago when YouTube came up. A lot of media houses, TV, moved to YouTube because they realized that's the content, that's where people are. The essence of media is to meet the people where they are. So it's not about the medium. It's about meeting the people where they are. That's why Channels TV was celebrating 1 billion views recently, and they've made the people where they are. You're online, we're coming online.
And one person also celebrated 1 billion.
1 billion. So, but
Ronaldo.
Again,
so that's what I was saying. One person.
The thing there now is that it's like when, let's take the media out, for example, and let's just look at different spaces.
All right.
Before we all went virtual as a people, as a society, global society, you had the media doing their bits. You had celebrities doing their bits. Celebrities have always earned money that were outrageous. Now, that is the one bread. Now, the second thing that is giving a lot of this content creators access to so much money, in my view, is that unlike the traditional media and the physical world where we're used to, there were copyright laws, stringent copyright laws that restricted what you could do. So for everything you did, you had the original content owner got an amount. Now, when you look at online, the truth is a lot of and there were restrictions for the traditional media. That's what made them strong. Now, when you look at online media, there are a lot of people that pick content from other media houses and they don't pay any royalties. They don't pay anything. And they have views. Some of them even have more views than TV stations or radio stations in the hundreds of thousands. And that works for them. Now, imagine we introduced the formula or the processes of the normal physical world that we had, where you paid royalties or you paid some incentives to the owner of the content, or where there were restrictions. Because right now you have the traditional media in the National Assembly.
Yeah.
You could also have the one-man person that you spoke about who just carries camera and goes to the National Assembly, gets the approval to be there, and also produces the same content that a TV station will produce, though the quality might not be the same.
Yeah, that's right.
Because the traditional TV will explain to you, give you a breakdown, give you the background story on what they're reporting and everything. They might just dump it there without saying anything about it, or even give a narrative that will suit your expectations. And that's it. So either way, they will make their money. The traditional media as well, they are also there on social media, in the virtual world. They will also make their money.
The US election, Donald Trump, it's no news. And we saw a shift in his approach to his campaign. And podcasting was like a game changer. It was like it changed the game entirely. Caught everyone off guard, and you saw him, Joe Rogan. From Joe Rogan, he went to Valuetainment, PBD, and a couple of other podcast platforms, and that in itself was the major breakthrough for his emergence. Do you think that alternative media outlets, quote and unquote, social media, podcasting, and all whatnot, away from traditional media outlets, will have a massive impact in Nigeria's political landscape in the next, let's say, 5 years or next election cycle?
Interestingly, let's start with social media, right? Yeah. When you look at the social media, the traditional platform, those with Alphabet, X, and all that, when you look at all that and you ask yourself, yes, we stay in Lagos and we talk about the impact that they made. But when you look at the people that are on social media and you ask yourself those questions, which cities are they located? And when you look at the urban cities and the rural areas, the urban areas and rural areas in Nigeria, which one has the higher population? That will answer the question on the impact of social media. Because you saw the impact of social media in the last elections in Lagos, because a lot of people in Lagos are very, very exposed. But did you see the impact of social media in Ondo? Did you see it in Akwa Ibom? So when it comes to podcasts it's a good way to go. Yeah. However, we should ask ourselves one question. What podcast means to the rest of the world, the West in particular, does it mean the same thing to us? If you, for example, I work with a radio station and I know that hosting the morning show, a lot of times people expect to call because it is radio. They don't have such expectation for TV. So if you're saying that podcast is growing, the podcast community is growing. Yeah. More of young, upwardly mobile people, more of people who have cars that they could connect their stuff with. Some of them they download, some they connect online. But beyond that, while podcast is growing, it isn't yet a threat to the traditional radio. Although, even if we talk about traditional radio, almost every radio station is online. Yeah. And almost every radio station has a podcast platform that they're on, where you could re-listen to some of the programs that they've had. So it's just what it is. Social media, we're no longer in a physical world, we're in a virtual world. So everything we used to do, it looks like it's new, but it's really not new. It's everything we used to do in the physical world that we're doing now in the virtual world. Thankfully, we're not avatars.
Okay, so what's the commonest content that you think bring people together? I think it's sports, right? Is it? And if you look at now, you see there's a new wave and a shift. Multinationals are now adjusting their budgets, marketing budgets, and the reason for that is it's no more a lot of it is no longer going to traditional media, no longer going to TV, to boxes. Because if, let's say you're watching the World Cup finals and after 45 minutes is halftime. Halftime is where more often than not you get to see the ads of most of these companies. Most people just do a simple analysis or experiment in your own little corner. Most people will pick up their phones once it's halftime. They're not listening, they're not watching the TV anymore. And I use myself as a case study. That's the TV in my house hardly comes on. It just comes on maybe like once a week. And I have a child. And why? Because there's no reason for me to turn it on. I have other things, other ways of connecting, of listening, of getting informed. You get other supposed better ways of even getting informed, in my own opinion. And that might be the case for a lot of people. So do you think that we've gotten to that tipping point of TV, radio becoming what happened, of TV and radio experiencing what happened to newspaper?
You know, what happened to newspaper was not forced. It was a seamless shift.
Yeah.
Now, for TV and radio to experience such, it will not be forced. Because, for example, what you said about sports, watching sports and listening to, during the halftime, going online to check, is the same thing that happened. For example, when it was a family, watching it at home, no phones in Nigeria, you sit down, halftime, you're talking in your home, gisting, and you're watching the advert, and you're in a hurry that, take this advert away. I remember, was it 1992 Nations Cup? There's an advert that played then. It had to do with this, something for pain, a pain-soothing balm, something like that. And it was Abedi Pele, the Ghanaian. And I remember the words he said that, I'm not sure, I doubt the Gen Zs would know this, but he said, I use Vigibomb before and after each match and training session. And we used to wait and laugh at it. Now, but while talking amongst ourselves. Now, fast forward now, when mobile phones came, we'll call ourselves and chat. We weren't just talking at home. We could even put it on speakerphone and people will be talking. And now there's the internet. We could reach a wider audience. So we're doing the same thing. It will not be forced. It will be seamless. And let me tie that into, was it around 2009 or 2008? I did a documentary with my colleagues then for UNICEF in Ghana. It was sponsored by UNICEF. It wasn't for UNICEF. It was for the Department of Children or so in Ghana at that time. And it was a sensitization campaign on child upbringing. If you look at it at that time, we did a teledrama. But prior to that, in the normal physical world, what we will have done is gone from village to village, telling people how to take care of the kids. But now, because of TV, we have to do a teledrama. Now, because of online, we'll go online. So it's normal, it's seamless, it's not forced. You just need to watch the times and know that you switch at the right time. If not, you'll be left behind.
What is the US election and how it shaped, podcast shaped the entire US election? And if you look at the numbers, you see millions and millions of people were captivated through via Donald Trump's campaign strategy using alternative media outlets. Is that going to play a massive role in Nigeria as well?
I don't see it playing that huge.
Remember what happened in 2023?
What happened in 2023?
The media was a major tool for the least likeliest candidate.
Social media.
And it almost gave the foreigners a run for their money.
Social media in Nigeria generates talking points. The last data I saw, it's not very active in the small towns and villages. Now, when you look at the population of Nigeria, what's the population of people in the villages as against the small towns? And that's why there was so much dispute in last year's election. Because we were very active in Lagos, because we were very active maybe in Ogun, in Abuja, in some parts of the east, some parts of south, some parts of the north, we assumed it was the entire Nigeria that was active on X. But the question is, beyond the very educated people that were on X, how many of these rural dwellers did we reach out to on social media? So because we had that mentality or that imagination, that belief that it was Nigeria that was supporting one candidate or going against one candidate, when the results came out, we contested it vehemently.
Very true.
If you do the same thing with podcasts, I think one thing we don't do enough of in Nigeria is data. And we need all this NPS and other data monitoring or collating agencies to do a lot more on that. Data would show you how well podcast does. Beyond those that have their vehicles connected to the internet or have maybe a one device or so they used to play podcasts in the cars, beyond the young ones in the car in Nigeria who are using all the smartphones and who hopefully are smart themselves, how many people really listen to podcasts? So if we expect that because, and that's the mistake we made, because it influenced American politics, even that, yes, it got some young people, but when you measure the impact on American politics, it doesn't look as great as it was made, it was described at first. Because I've had conversations around that on CNN. So I don't see podcasts having so much influence, at least not now.
You had the conversation on CNN. Now, what were you expecting?
Anyway,
you get the point.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. But it's all good. What's the next frontiers? Decades and decades of experience. What should we be looking out for? And are you going to catch us off guard?
Well, nothing to catch off guard there. It's certain that after years of many failures, you become more. You become wiser, you become better at what you do, you are able to identify opportunities. So one of the things I notice in our country is that while the media is strong, we're doing our bit, there are many limitations, and not even government restrictions now, but other limitations in terms of training, capacity, and other things. So starting a CSO that will deal with media law and justice, and that will come up next year. When I clocked 25 years in the industry. At that same time, I should, hopefully, I've written my book. I've been writing it for so long in my mind. We'll get there. I've been told you can't write it. I'm like, well, we'll get there. So it talks a lot about failure, identifies the strength of failure. We need to learn to fail, because learning to fail means you want to take a step. Because when you take that step, you will learn from it and you take better steps. And that's one major thing I'll be doing in 2025. Or those two major things I'll be doing in 2025.
Are you sure Gen Z is ready to listen to that? Because if you give this to an average Gen Z right now, the next thing he's looking at doing is plucking a fruit. See how small this is. That's how much the mind of a Gen Z is. They need result now.
Yeah,
because of how the world is turning out, how it's shaping. And I don't blame them. Give you a classic example. Last week, there are conversations around Sora. It's not just new. Sora, the text-to-video AI platform that is being rolled out now by ChatGPT. OpenAI is the makers of that. And it just it's so weird how you can type a prompt of Frank and Kayode having a conversation, give it the exact setting, an oval-shaped glass with a plant, white table, black chair with 3 cameras, and it will give you the exact same feel. See how scary that is, and that's crazy. And will you blame Gen Zs? Because if tech is doing that, that's the way their thought process is right now. With that prompt, you can get your answer in less than 1 minute. So why would I think, I think alongside the times?
I think one mistake we make is whenever we talk, we are quick to talk about you can't blame them. You can't blame them. It's not about blame. It's just stating the fact that this is where we are and we need to change it. But we always see it as, we are blaming them. Nobody is blaming anybody. But the bottom line is, whether you agree with it or not, there's a price to pay when you don't take time in building up.
There's a price to pay when you don't take time in building up. It shows that you're paid in full. Are you?
I am paid in full.
You
never stop paying though.
You've heard from a man who has paid his dues in full. And it gives you an insight as to this episode. It gives you what it takes to be able to wear that badge of saying, I'm an authority in this space. I am somebody of timber and caliber when it comes to having conversations around an industry, around a sector. And that's what Kayode Iposu has done to this episode of Paid in Full. I'll see you same time on the same platforms that you can listen to me and hear me and watch me, where we talk about issues around businesses, where we talk about the lifestyle behind the lights, camera actions of business leaders, of industry leaders, and people who are paid their dues and literally paid it in full. I'll see you. Cheers. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and do everything you want to do with this episode, because we've got you covered. Cheers.